Welcome to the April 11th, 2022 City Council meeting. I now call the meeting to order. I would ask Council Member Sestarsik if you would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Okay, please join me in a pledge to our flag. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And now for our Deputy City Clerk, we'll call the roll, please.
Mayor Kalmick.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Verapapa.
Here.
Councilmember Masalavit.
Here.
Councilmember Moore.
Here.
Councilmember Sestarsik.
Here.
All present.
Thank you. Now it's time for the approval of the agenda and the waiver of full reading of resolutions and ordinances. By the motion of the City Council, this is the time to notify the public of any changes to the agenda and/or rearrange the order of the agenda. Does anyone wish to pull a consent calendar item?
Yes, I'd like to pull item G, please.
Item G, okay. Anyone else? Okay. Deputy City Clerk, do we have any supplemental communications this evening?
Yes, Mayor, we have 68 emailed comments that were received regarding item G, and 5 PowerPoints were received after the posting of the agenda that were distributed to City Council and made available to the public.
Okay, thank you. Could I have a motion and a second to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
I'll second.
Thank you. Could we have a roll call vote, please? You don't need to?
If you can just vote on your iPad, please.
Of course.
Thank you.
This is,
Too long.
it's so new-fashioned.
Councilmember Masalavit, how do you vote?
Yes.
That pass 5-0?
Yes, passes 5-0.
Okay, next will be presentations and recognitions. First topic is the OCTA I-405 widening update. I'll call upon Chris Buckley, if I pronounce that close, and Jeff Mills from OCTA.
Perfect. Thank you and good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. Again, I'm Jeff Mills, Orange County Transportation Authority, or OCTA's Program Manager for the I-405 Improvement Project. And joining me is Chris Buckley. You said it better than I. Chris Buckley from OCTA's Public Outreach Team. We will be providing an update on the project as a whole, and also more specifically discuss ongoing and upcoming construction activities within the city. Next slide, please. I'll start with some background on the overall project on slide 2. As shown on the left, the project limits are from approximately State Route 73 in Costa Mesa up to I-605 in Seal Beach, a length of approximately 16 miles. As shown on the right, one regular general purpose lane will be added in each direction of the 405, consistent with Measure M, as depicted in yellow. An additional lane will be added in each direction that will combine with the existing carpool lane to provide dual express lanes from State Route 73 to I-605 as depicted in green. The overall cost of this design build project is just over $2 billion, and we are about 70% complete with construction at this point. Next slide, please. This graphic on slide 3 reflects several areas within the city that I will focus on in the following slides. These areas include Seal Beach Boulevard and Old Ranch Parkway, Lamson Avenue, Northgate Road, Almond Avenue, Bolsa Chica Road, and College Park West. Next slide, please. Slide 4 focuses on ramp construction within the city. Starting in the southbound direction, the Seal Beach on-ramp to southbound 405 was completed earlier this year. and the southbound off-ramp to Seal Beach Boulevard is anticipated to start in the late summer, early fall timeframe. In the northbound direction, the off-ramp to Seal Beach Boulevard was completed about 2 years ago, and the Seal Beach on-ramp to northbound 405 is anticipated to start construction later this spring after completion of the Old Ranch Parkway on-ramp, which should open to traffic at the end of this month. So in summary, all of the on and off ramps in the city are anticipated to be complete by late this year. Next slide, please. On slide 5, related to Seal Beach Boulevard, the 2 traffic signal modifications at Lamson Avenue and Old Ranch Parkway are nearing completion in the next few months, with the installation of cabinets that will control the new signals. Regarding the Seal Beach Boulevard median landscaping north of the freeway, we anticipate starting that work in May, with completion scheduled for early July. Repairing the pavement between Lamson and Old Ranch will follow the median landscaping work. Our contractor is also completing the fiber optic communications on Seal Beach Boulevard this month. This will allow the city to move forward with their traffic signal synchronization project. Next slide, please. Moving to Lamson Avenue on slide 6, the fencing and landscaping work between the freeway and Lamson Avenue is anticipated to start this fall. Utility work is being coordinated with the city and Southern California Edison near the Target sign, and also for Frontier, which has overhead and underground facilities that need to be relocated. Lastly, the city's Lamson Bikeway project will commence after completion of our work at the Seal Beach Boulevard, Lamson Avenue intersection. Next slide, please. Slide 7 focuses on the work near Northgate Road. As part of the 405 project, we are relocating an old city sewer line under the freeway to a new alignment, which will result in a new sewer line for the city. This work is anticipated to begin in May and will require Northgate Road to be closed for approximately 2 months to tie into the deep sewer lines in Northgate Road and repair the street pavement when complete. The reconstruction of the sound walls between Northgate Road and the freeway are ongoing, and the walls are anticipated to be completed this summer. Next slide, please. Moving to Almond Avenue on slide 8, the work on the freeway side is ongoing, and the walls themselves are scheduled to be complete in the August timeframe. The new walls will be the same height as the existing walls. Electrical cabinets will be installed at 3 locations along Almond Avenue in the next several months. And lastly, Almond Avenue street improvements will be completed in the late summer, early fall timeframe after the walls are completed. Next slide, please. Although Bolsa Chica Road Bridge, shown on slide 9, is just east of the city limits, I wanted to note that the bridge is now generally fully open to traffic, and the southbound 405 off-ramp to Bolsa Chica, which is shown on the photo on the right, also recently opened to traffic. Both of these elements will help the local traffic circulation in the area. Next slide, please. As part of the project and near College Park West, the Orange County Flood Control District required that we improve the Montecito channel, which is shown on the right side of this photo on slide 10. The channel is being widened to provide increased capacity because the Flood Control District's goal is to protect the county from the threat and damage of flooding. Some early landscaping clearing work by our contractor was performed without appropriate notification to the adjacent neighborhood. For this, I do apologize sincerely for this oversight, and we have addressed this issue with our contractor. Chris Buckley will now discuss the work in a little more detail and also some of the outreach efforts involved.
Great, thank you. Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. Appreciate you allowing us to be here this evening. So the Montecito channel improvements extend from the I-405, I-605 connector by Rossmore to the junction with the Los Alamitos channel at the south end of the College Park West community. Near College Park West, the Montecito channel crosses under the southbound 405 to westbound 22 connector and the adjacent sound wall. The work here will be performed in 2 phases, each expected to take approximately 3 to 4 months. The first phase focuses on the area west of the connector, closer to homes, and the second phase covers the area east of the connector. In general, Activities for each phase include excavating the area and installing temporary shoring, demolishing the old channel, and constructing the new channel. There are also 3 utility lines, 1 power and 2 water lines, that need to be relocated. And the first phase includes removing about 200 linear feet of that sound wall to perform the work. The wall will be reconstructed before the second phase begins, and that's anticipated to happen in late summer. And the channel improvements are expected to wrap up by the end of the year. Also, as Jeff noted, some landscaping was cleared for this construction. This landscaping will be replaced after construction activities in the area are completed. Next slide, please. So we recently held a virtual meeting with College Park West residents to discuss these improvements and the schedule. We will continue to keep the community apprised of construction activities for the duration of the work on the channel. These neighborhood meetings are one of the tools we use to inform the public about the project. As you can see from this slide, there are several other ways to get information. For major activities like demolition, we typically canvass flyers. We also send out regular updates by email and through text and automated call alerts. You can sign up for those updates from our project website at octa.net/405 improvement, or by calling us on the project helpline, or by emailing us at 405project@octa.net. We also post frequently on social media, and closure and detour information is available on our interactive map at octa.net/405map. That same closure and detour information is also available on the navigation app Waze. This concludes our presentation, and we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from council?
Yeah, I had a couple.
Sure.
And thank you, I do get a lot of phone calls, so I have to keep my voicemail cleared out. I had a question, I think you answered it. One of my residents was asking about the height of the sound wall on Almond because it didn't look like the rebar was as tall as another section, so it looks like it's still on schedule to be the same height as the old wall?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes, the existing wall's 18 feet high, and the new walls will match that height of 18 feet.
Okay.
And will be consistent.
And you said the completion date for the almond wall would be August? Is
Yes.
that the east
That-
wall, or is that?
Both walls.
Both walls?
That's both walls. So the blocks are anticipated, the block that becomes the wall are anticipated to start in mid to late June. And will
June.
take
Oh,
about
okay.
6 weeks to get all the blocks up.
Oh, okay, I thought it was going to be sooner than that, but,
We were hoping it would be sooner than that. We have to finish up some work on the freeway side before the blocks can go up, so that's the current schedule.
okay. I had a question from another resident that was asking about the sound attenuation of the new wall. Would it be similar to the old wall, or better than the old wall, or any guesses on that one?
The new sound walls that are going up, or the replacement walls, are standard Caltrans type masonry block sound walls, which have been kind of tried and true throughout California, and they will offer very good sound attenuation, just
Okay.
like the existing walls.
Okay, let me see if I had another one. So as far as curb and gutter and vines and things along Almond, is that also August, or would that be after August?
That will follow the completion of the walls after August. They'll work on the curb and gutter and repairing any pavement on Almond Avenue, and inclusive of, that's when we would be ready to start landscaping, such as the vines in this
Okay.
case.
Okay. And I think that's all right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I do, but go ahead, Tom.
Councilman
Yeah, thank you.
Moore?
Could you just review the timeline on the College Park West? You said it's 3 to 4 months for first phase, and then 3 to 4 months for the second phase?
That's correct.
And that as of starting now, or?
Yes, the anticipation is that in mid-April, that's when, well, they've been working all along, right? So the first step for them was to create a bypass for the channel. So they've been working on that. It runs near College Park West. It runs along the connector on the east side of the connector. They're still working on completing that. Meanwhile, they are going to, once they finish that, they'll shift traffic over on the connector toward the east, away from College Park, and that'll create a work area for them to work on the west side, right? And at that point, and they anticipate this happening in the next couple of weeks here. It's been a little delayed. They'll demolish that 200 feet of the sound wall. Before doing that demolition, they'll put up the fencing with the sound blankets,
Okay.
as we mentioned in the meeting.
How is,
Basically, between now and the end of the year, is the timeframe for the entire Montecito Channel work to be completed. Between now and August is about when the first phase will take.
how do you typically communicate with the contractor to take out trees? And as I got a call from like 7 residents on one day, and I had to go down and talk to the tractor guy and tell him to stop because he was taking down trees without notifying the city or the residents. And it was really awkward situation. So I appreciate, if you could communicate with the city, residents, and just a little better, especially if you're taking out trees. People are very passionate about, trees that have grown for, 20, 30 years, all of a sudden they're being mowed down, so.
Yeah, I agree. We take full responsibility for that. Our contractor is required to give us 10 days' notice when they're doing something of that nature. And in this case, that did not happen, and we've had a lot of serious conversations with them about the sensitivity of doing work like this, particularly near any residential. And so everyone's on board with providing the notification so that Chris and his team can reach out to both city staff and the residents to make sure everyone's aware of what's coming up.
And one of the concerns with our residents was they didn't know which trees maybe to take out, and they maybe took out too many trees, where if they could mark the ones they were going to take out, go over that with the city, make sure everything is according to the plan, and that way, and communicate with the residents, and that way the communication is there instead of just someone showing up and tearing down trees. So. Yeah, on the Northgate Road, how far is that wall going to go towards the freeway, or towards the bridge? So we had talked about maybe extending that a little bit further, with a kind of tapered down, because there is a senior living facility there. So.
I'll have to double check the limits. It goes pretty far down Northgate Road. Obviously, there's the water reservoir there, or the water tank, the city water tank facility down there that probably would not need protection, but there are a lot of facilities there that would. But I don't know the exact limit, to be honest, so I'll through city staff, get that information back to you.
Okay. And the last thing, it'd be nice to have another slide that just had kind of a time estimate for each of the major Seal Beach projects.
Okay.
And I do want to thank you for
city staff as well.
Thank you for coming tonight, and thank you for doing the meeting with College Park West. I really appreciate that. So, thanks.
Getting back to the Almond Street wall, I know you have a noise engineer that has completed contour lines for the decibel level on the residential side of the Almond wall after it's moved. I probably saw those at some point several years ago. Could you get us some information and show us what those decibel levels are after the wall is built, the anticipated decibel levels after the wall is built? Because I think, judging from where I am in Leisure World, and I'm not even close to the freeway, probably a mile away, it's pretty loud. And then when they took down part of the wall on Northgate, it's louder. And I'd like to know what those decibel levels are anticipated to be within the community after the wall is built again. Because I've had a dispute this whole time with this whole big construction that those contour lines are not accurate and they're not labeled accurately. It's a lot more than 65 decibels. And I can attest to that without any equipment. And I'd like to know what they are really going to be. I think early on I asked that you put new sound meters out and do new measurements, and you came up with 65 decibel levels after the wall is built, and I know it's not. So you're going to need to convince me. I know there's nothing I can do about it now, but you're going to have to convince me that I'm wrong and you're right.
Sure, we would be happy to provide the information and meet with you individually if you like.
I do like.
Okay.
And that might not be a bad idea for College Park West as well, because I think that some of those contour lines are not where they should be. So you need to prove that too. Now, to get to Northgate Road, now it was closed for months. Why is it going to be closed again? Because you didn't finish it the first time, is that it?
So we had some challenges.
I
the
know you
first
had some
time.
bad dirt. Okay.
Yes.
Bad dirt. It's there. Okay. So is that the reason why you closed it up temporarily so we could open it? Or so that you could fix it now again and close it for 2 or 3 months?
That is correct. We had some tough challenges there with the soil and a variety of things, and we opened it back up while we regrouped, and now we're going to essentially fix it at this point in time, coming up in May.
Okay. So I've got a story to tell to the people who knock on my door and say, how come Northgate Road is closing again? Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Verapapa?
Yeah, the old Ranch Parkway, which is the westbound 22 on-ramp by Spaghettini's, that was delayed once. What was the date it's going to open now?
By the end of this month.
So April 31st?
Mhm.
You don't anticipate any delays on that?
We do not.
Okay. Also along Lamson and Almond Soundwall, I noticed there's a lot of breaking of concrete going on. A lot of dust is being created on the roadway and surfaces over there. Do you do any compensation to the residents over there with like car washing certificates or anything like that? Street sweeping, cleaning on the streets of Almond Wall area or Lamson? Or even cleaning of the tennis courts, because there's a lot of dust that's created from that work over there. I mean, it's dusty normally, but with the concrete work going on and the digging and all that stuff, there's a lot of extra dirt. So the residents, do they get any kind of compensation? I know in the past, car wash certificates were kind of handed out periodically just to kind of clean things up, or street sweeping, I'm sure, is pretty common. And then even the tennis courts kind of get dirty, at least on that side especially. Do you offer any of those type of services to the city or the residents?
Councilmember Verapapa, we don't have a program for like things such as car washes. Street sweeping is a regular part of the effort, as well as using water trucks to keep dust down and so forth. What I would say is the only formal process is there is a claims process that any resident or business can go through if they believe that something has been damaged and they want to file a claim, and that goes through a process to see if it is rectified.
Yeah, I haven't noticed any water trucks there lately.
You're referring to the freeway side, the work
Yeah, the
being
freeway
done on
side, where all the
freeway side?
work and the hammering is going on daily. They're doing a lot of work. Trucks are running up and down there. I know they're working on the sound wall barrier and all
Yeah,
that
they're
stuff.
getting ready to pave that
And
area.
it would be a nice gesture for the residents to get some type of, certificates aren't expensive, kind of hand them out to the front row or the first row of homes or something like that. Just be a nice gesture, I would think. What type of coordination do you have with the sanitation district? Because when Seal Beach southbound on-ramp to the 405 was closed, the detour was through the Westminster area, Westminster Boulevard. And you would close the ramp and they would close the lane, and it was a mess. I mean, do you coordinate with them regularly, or how's that working?
Yes, we do coordinate with Orange County Sanitation District on a biweekly basis throughout the 16 miles, but specifically what you're referring to is their big project on Westminster. With the city's help, we've been coordinating our detours and so forth. You're correct, that detour was not perfect by any means because of that work going on down there, but we were able to work through it, and we do speak with them at least on a biweekly basis to make sure that we're coordinating the different activities that are happening on the city local streets in particular.
Also, I noticed on the 16-mile corridor, there's like a corridor theme. You have aesthetic barriers and bridges and fencing and railing and stuff like that. Is that correct for the 16-mile corridor?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, Seal Beach doesn't have upgraded light posts or railing. Will that be included in this project, or is it's going to stay the way it is? Because I noticed like all the other cities have nice lamps and nice fencing, and it's a little bit more decorative, if you will. Will Seal Beach get any of that?
At Seal Beach, the main bridge obviously is Seal Beach Boulevard. Which
Kind of the
is-
gateway to the county, right?
Right, which was built as part of the West County Connectors, probably 8 years ago now. And so so when we met before the project started with all of the cities, we did prepare what we called a landscaping and aesthetic plan for the overall corridor. But that was primarily for the 18 bridges that were being replaced as part of the project, with the northernmost being at Bolsa Chica Road. So we are, if I recall correctly, we are putting a couple of monuments at
Right.
Seal Beach Boulevard. So that was something that we worked with the city to make happen. But as far as retrofitting the bridge that was recently built, we did not plan to do that, no.
All right. Going back to Almond Avenue and the Seal Beach Tennis Center, do you think you can have someone look at that and just see if there's excess dust?
Absolutely.
I mean, I don't want to go back and water everything now, but because everything's still dusty out on the surfaces, maybe someone can go out there and look at it and just kind of give their 2 cents worth and maybe compensate or clean up the best they can as far as that's concerned?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I just had one question regarding the tree removal. Is there any sort of mitigation plan for replacing trees that are taken down, or is this in an area that wouldn't be feasible or advisable?
Yes, there is. In general, whenever we remove trees, which are defined a certain way, a certain diameter of trunk, they are replaced, generally speaking, at a ratio of 3 to 1. So there is a mitigation in place for that type of situation. And specific to College Park West, where we did remove trees, those will be part of the what we call a planting plan that goes back in. You could refer to it as a mitigation plan as well, but it's a planting plan and irrigation plan for moving forward. And I know that OCTA, and I think Chris has expressed this to the community, that will involve the city staff and the community when that plan is ready for showtime.
Okay, great. Any,
I would just add really quickly that the 3
Sure.
to 1 depends on the room available, right?
right,
So I think it's important to note that.
okay. Any final questions?
Yeah, one more.
Sure, go ahead.
I had a resident who lived along Almond that had an issue with excessive dust on their car, and I reported it to OCTA. They contacted her, took care of it. Everything was worked out. So I just advise residents, if you have an issue, just contact the 405 team, and they're very willing to work with you. So thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for coming. Okay, next, we have a proclamation that will be focusing on Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And I will now read the proclamation. Sexual Assault Awareness Month is April 2022, and whereas Sexual Assault Awareness Month, SAAM, calls attention to the fact that sexual violence is widespread and impacts millions of adults, teenagers, and children, and whereas the goal of Sexual Assault Awareness Month is to raise public awareness about sexual violence and educate communities on how to prevent it, and whereas rape, sexual assault, and sexual harassment harm our community, and statistics show that 1 out of every 6 American women have been victims of attempted or completed rape, and 1 out of every 10 men, and whereas child sexual abuse prevention must be a priority to confront the reality that what is reported is that 1 in 9 girls and 1 in 53 boys under the age of 18 experience sexual abuse or assault at the hands of an adult. And whereas sexual assault affects individuals across all ages, abilities, sexual orientations, gender identities, and of all racial, social, religious, ethnic, and economic backgrounds, and whereas the National Sexual Violence Resource Center is promoting 30 days of SAAM with this year's theme, Building Safe Online Spaces Together. And whereas together we can make a difference to build inclusive, safe, and respectful online spaces, and to promote the safety of others, and showing survivors that they are believed and supported. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Seal Beach City Council that the City of Seal Beach recognizes April 2022 as Sexual Assault Awareness Month and hopes that each day of the month and year is an opportunity to create change for the future. In witness thereof, I hereby fix my signature and the seal of the City of Seal Beach this 11th day of April in the year 2022. Thank you for paying attention. Okay, next is oral communications. At this time, members of the public may address the council regarding any items within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the council cannot discuss or take action on any items not on the agenda unless authorized by law. Matters not on the agenda may, at the council's discretion, be referred to the city manager and placed on a future agenda. Those members of the public wishing to speak are asked to come forward to the microphone and state their name for the record. All speakers will be limited to a period of 5 minutes. Speakers must address their comments only to the mayor and the entire city council and not to any individual member of staff or audience. Any documents for review should be presented to the city clerk for distribution. So if there are any folks that wish to come forward to speak, please do so, and to the podium right behind our city attorney.
Is Mike okay? Hi, Mayor. I'm pleased to meet everyone here. First time I've been at one of these meetings. So bear with me for a minute. I'm talking about this Memorandum of Understanding between the Seal Beach and the Pickleball Association. And I read this over a little bit, and I have a few questions. One, which I looked at first, and I couldn't understand how the document even got signed by the attorney when we looked at one section in here on the payment where they said 10% of the net. Now, we're familiar with 10% of the net means the city will get no money. It should be at least 20% of the gross. You can't use the net because you'll never get any money. I own a couple of corporations, and one's a nonprofit with the Vietnam veterans. And when I saw that, I said, first of all, the city should never have approved that. That's almost like a gross negligent part of this document. The city should be looking out for the city. When you're writing the contract and reviewing a contract, you want to make sure the city gets the money. The other thing in here is, we have a very good situation at the Parks and Recreation down at the Pickleball and, what do they play? Pickleball and tennis. It runs very good, seems to be going good, and I can't understand why they want to put together an outside group to help this group. And when you read this document, they're going to decide who does this, who does that, and we don't need more people involved. You have a very good Parks and Recreation department. They can run this. They've been running it good. We haven't had any problems. I've never heard of any problems there. You just sent $1.5 million in that facility. That's terrific. But don't put another group in there that's going to end up becoming a private club and changing the way we do business there. The business is going good. You may need to help them out at the Parks and Recreation. They may need a little advice on how many tournaments per year, what we're going to charge for the tournaments, but we don't need somebody picking out this tournament or that tournament. We don't need that. That's the job of the city and the parks. And I know I couldn't understand something. We got Mike, who's, a city councilman, and he's involved with this document. I mean, it may not be a conflict of interest, but it looks that way. And Mike, you got a lot of power. He's got a lot of power. He goes down there. He can intimidate people there. You're a city councilman. They're going to say, hey, when you come by, you say something. It's like the mayor. When you go out, so you got to be a little careful when you go down there. We want to keep this going for Seal Beach. It's Seal Beach property. It's Seal Beach Parks and Recreation, and they can do a good job. I really, if anything, we need to go over this document before anything gets signed. Again, like I say, I don't want to see this thing pushed through at all. We got to go over this, but I don't think you need the document. It's only going to create problems there. It's going to create a way of doing business that's running smooth. It's like they say, when something's running good, don't touch it. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ray E. Bobbin, and I'm here also to speak about item G. A little background. 8 years ago, the city decided that they needed to replace the people who had been managing the tennis center. And they did a good job. They found someone that was very qualified, had good experience, lots of background in managing, and this individual has been running the tennis center since then and has been very, very successful. In fact, the tennis center is booming. This individual, this lady, Brenda Danielson, brought in pickleball. There was no pickleball at the club before she arrived. She brought it in and developed it to where it is now. Seal Beach has one of the most effective and most used pickleball centers in all of Orange County. I think that she has made that center into something that the city can be very proud of. Now, this issue should be very simple, okay? Somebody who created a new company just weeks ago has no customers. If they walked in the front door and went to the recreation department and said, we'd like to do a service for you, the questions would be, how long have you been in business? What's your background? What are your references? blah, 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 all of which would be answered with virtually no answers. Okay? So the Recreation Department would say, well, thank you very much, you don't meet our qualifications. It's as simple as that. Okay? Well, the current person who created such a business and has brought this thing to the point of a memorandum has not gone in the front door because they knew they would be dismissed, okay? So they've come in the back door. And they've done this to control the information that the city council gets to see. You, as near as I can tell, have not seen both sides of this issue. You got a little taste of it from the prior speaker, okay? There's no interest in making any changes at that tennis center. Everybody is very happy with everything that's going on. Of course, if you're in the position of the person who's trying to come in and create your own new business, then you're going to find people that will support what you want to do. But that's not good enough, okay? There's a lot of support for where the center is now and where it is going under the leadership of the current activities director. So I want to make sure that City Council understands if the City Council were to support this individual and approve the memorandum, then the first thing that would happen was the City of Seal Beach would be identified as the City Council supports pickleball but doesn't support tennis. Already a wedge has been driven into the situation, okay? That's not what we're trying to do at the tennis center and the pickleball center, okay? We're trying to get a large group of people who are happy that they're there, they're enjoying their sport, and they're all agreeing to become friends and mutual support between the both kinds of sports. There's no interest in driving wedges. There's no need for a pickleball private operation, okay? So I don't want to take up all your time. I want you to realize that you don't have enough information to make your decision, certainly not tonight. You should bring in more people that have been there since the beginning
30
and
seconds
know
to wrap
what's
up.
going on. So that will be helpful to you in making this decision. Do not be part of the train wreck that would happen if you moved ahead as it's being promoted by your council member. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hi, I'm Joy Applegate. I'm a local resident, and this is my first time I've ever been to your chambers, so thank you for the privilege. I want to express my thanks to the Seal Beach Tennis and Pickleball Center. The growth there has been phenomenal. It doesn't surprise me because, as we know, pickleball is the largest growing sport in the world and in the nation. But it's phenomenal. It's just been fantastic to see what all you've done at the tennis center, and you should all congratulate yourselves. I think it's already a success, and it's showing because it's growing and it's got interest and people are involved. So I really appreciate the improvements that you've made. It's really made a difference, and I do want to express my complete support for the Pickleball Association and for the item G. It's a great idea. I don't see it taking away from the center. I just see it as natural growth, given the sport and given the needs within each different sport. We peacefully coexist at Marina Park, which I live right down the street from, and was very, supportive and involved with having the 4 pickleball courts, constructed there. And And now there's a tennis court and 4 pickleball courts, and things work very well there. And I see us peacefully coexisting at the tennis center, because the tennis players have their needs, and the pickleball group itself and tournaments is another specific situation, which I think can be handled very well by the nonprofit. So thank you for listening to me, and have a good evening.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Nimesh Udani. I live in Seal Beach in the Old Ranch Homes. And I'm a member of the Seal Beach Pickleball and Tennis Center. And I play tennis. My wife plays pickleball. And my daughter is there 5 days a week playing tennis under Brenda's care and the other coaches that we have. A program has been running since 2013 where we've introduced pickleball. And if it was not for pickleball, that place would be dead. I get it. They have done amazing to bring the crowd in. I mean, you drive by that place in the evening, there's cars. And there's cars on the weekend, on a Sunday even. We never had that. That was something that was done by the current staff there. And it is a well-running machine. For somebody to come in and say, I want that now, that doesn't sound right to me. I would like Measure G, or whatever you call that, to be investigated a little further and ask more questions, because I want more questions. Everything's running great, and all of a sudden you want to throw a monkey wrench into this and change it? Why? And it's also, I looked at that document, and I didn't get a lot of look into it, but going back to that net profit, is the current situation net profit of 10% from Brenda? Yes. Okay, that's fine. I was addressing to the city council. But we need to look at that. And today is not the day to approve this. Today, I want answers. And I know, this is on the 11th hour, so I'm asking you guys to reconsider approving this and at least look into it further. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, council members. Thank you for the time. My name is Todd Okamura. I'm the Director of Operations of the Seal Beach Pickleball Association. In that, I'm also a former Marine. I'm a Director of HR, and I've been a Director of HR of many major organizations and businesses. The Pickleball Association wasn't developed to be, as some had mentioned, to be against or to be in any way a avenue that would conflict with tennis at all. The goal, though, of the Pickleball Association is, in fact, that the mission is to develop a community, continue to enhance the community for our pickleball members. Like you've seen, that we have over 180 pickleball members. We have a number of individuals here that are supportive of us. I believe that we've spoken to our friends, and there have been outreaches to all of you in support of the measure just as well. The proceeds that are in question today, what the nonprofit is meant to be is that the directors are not to gain any financial gain. They're not to have any financial gains. All the proceeds will go back into the pickleball center. In addition to that, we've developed the nonprofit organization to be a charitable organization so that it can help also the nonprofit charities of choice that the city and us and the city work through. We've been working with the Parks and Recs Department over the past year, talking with them just as to work through and because we've been happy with the enhancements that you've all done as a city, and we've been so very, very pleased. That's why you've seen that the growth of pickleball today is enormous. That, like our fellow colleague at the center in tennis, we have over 100 people a day, and it is busy between morning and afternoon. And the goal, though, again, it's not that we would be in conflict and that suppress growth, but we would be able to support the growth, continue to provide a avenues for more events, for more activities, to help to build a community where we'll be able to get together and share a meal together when COVID allows that to be available. And then as you've graciously done, the money put into it from the grant, and as we have the other advances in the center for tennis and pickleball, we're going to be very pleased to continually support the city as well as the park recs, any individual there to be just a growing member in the pickleball community. A couple things. We do know, and as members of the board, we have a lot of individuals from a lot of different groups. So it's not like the fact that we've chosen people and certain people. We've been able to get people from a lot of different groups. That's why we have, or we believe we have a cross-section, and we have a great we have momentum to continually build pickleball at Seal Beach Tennis Center. And again, I do want to say that it's not to be in conflict at all with anything and the great things that have been done. We don't want to suppress any growth, but we are here to just enhance the community and most of all, enhance the name of Seal Beach, the city of Seal Beach. So we're hopeful that the city council will look in favor of this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Catherine King, and I am too a privileged pickleball player. And you know what, when someone said tonight, it said something about a business that we're trying to develop, I just wanted to make sure that everyone understands it's more like friends of Weaver, friends of Hopkinson, friends of whatever, different groups. And it's nonprofit, so no one's out there to make money, but I think it's amazing that we have this huge community of people of all ages, everything coming together and saying, hey, we're willing to dedicate our time, our energy, our monetary resources. We're all out there anyway, really trying to make a better community. And I just feel like it's a great thing to go forward with, because then we have that Friends of group helping the city, even helping with some of the financial burdens. There's so many people out there willing to give their time and energy. I think it's a great opportunity to have people in the community just come together to form this organization. And it's an association. It's like Todd said, it has nothing to do with any of us making any money. Whereas I know now, the way it is run, the person running it does make money for themselves as well as the city, which is amazing and great. But this opportunity for this community is not to make money, it's just to make the enhancement. It's just to give us all a place to play and come together, and then maybe even teach other people, like have some charitable events and bring kids in and, get kids back out there if they need it. They've not had a lot of social and activity, and I think this is a great way to do it. So I would really appreciate if you would take a second look at the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. I enjoy being here tonight. I'm here as a representative of the Seal Beach Tennis and Pickleball Center. I have been one of the players there since the early inception of pickleball. I have watched it personally grow from one tennis court with 4 rickety pickleball nets to where it is today. We are very proud to represent the city of Seal Beach when some of us go and play in other venues representing our city. There's no need to have 2 entities in this facility. I believe that the center is already a registered nonprofit. I have watched personally Brenda on hands and knees chalk the lines before a council member became involved, and we are greatly appreciate what he's done to enhance our venue. Also, I would like to see this tabled until more investigation. I see many of my friends that I play pickleball with here. Hi, friends. Hey, friends. We have a wonderful fellowship. We have a tremendous fellowship. I feel we don't need two different entities fighting, for the right. The tennis people love you. Always have, always will. Let's do this, people. Live up to the motto. I mean, we can work together to make this better, what we have. The wheel is moving. It's moving great. I love playing there. I hope I get to continue to play there. And I think in all fairness, perhaps said council member would have to recuse themselves from voting in such an issue, just because of perhaps a conflict of interest. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's John Kachiver. I was here the last 3 times. I'm back again. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me back so I can give you the 411 on April 11th. The city of Seal Beach should immediately decriminalize psilocybin-containing mushrooms for locals only. Furthermore, I believe you, the City Council of Seal Beach, agree with me, but I have so far out failed to present the information in information. I messed that up. Present the information in formation. To begin, after living in Seal Beach nearly 25 years, I love the neighborly, small-town, local community feeling here. However, I have not felt this within City Council communication about decriminalization, as council members have deferred me to the police chief, and the police chief has deferred me to the state government of California. This completely goes against the words written on the wall right here. Preserve our small town character. I think we should decide this here. And really, that is what all this is about. The de jure does not match the de facto. The de jure tells us that psychedelics are as dangerous as opiates, amphetamines, benzodiazepines, and cocaine. But the de facto shows that psychedelics do not cause physical overdoses, psychedelics are not addictive, and psychedelics simply do not need the police resources to reduce the crime that surrounds other drugs like opiates, amphetamines, benzodiazepines, and cocaine. In addition, I have compromised my stance from decriminalize psychedelics to decriminalize psilocybin-containing mushrooms, for I believe this is an even safer route. Mushrooms can be grown with spores from home cheaply, discreetly, and with an easy learning curve. This local independence allows the users to know exactly what is being consumed. This is a stark contrast to the problem causing deadly overdoses and substances cut with fentanyl that is just ravaging communities. The psilocybin experience lasts 4 to 6 hours, making it more manageable if supervision is wanted or needed than other psychedelics. Lastly, look around. Cannabis is legal, so we are not going to go backwards. Psilocybin mushrooms will be legal, and it is not an if, it is a when. Seal Beach residents want to consume psilocybin mushrooms safely, responsibly, and for our own mental health in our hometown right now. Many of us have previously tried antidepressants, ADHD, and anxiety medication to no avail, including those veterans with PTSD, those with terminal illness, with end-of-life anxiety, and those in depression with no faith things will get better. To be clear, I do not believe that consumption of psychedelics is the cure-all. but I do believe psychedelics can catalyze the start of a journey to well-being with guidance from all currently available modalities. So what do I really mean by the term decriminalize? This term essentially entails matching the de jure to the de facto. The cities of Santa Cruz, Oakland, and state of Oregon have used the language. This resolution declared that the investigation and arrest of individuals 21 years of age and older involved with the adult and use and personal possession of entheogenic psychoactive plants
You
and
have 30
fungi
seconds to wrap up.
listed on the Federal One list be amongst the lowest priorities of the municipality. This allows the police to use their own discretion, but also acknowledges the facts of the matter. I'm not going to get to finish, but please, City Council, let's allow the word to become flesh. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Honorable Mayor and City Council, thank you for the time to address the committee. First, I would like to start by thanking you so much for all the effort and money that you have put into the Seal Beach Tennis and Pickleball Center. It has allowed us to grow from 60 members to over 188 members of pickleball. The growth is exponential. As part of the nonprofit that we are trying to put together, some of our goals are to teach children how to play pickleball. Hopefully, we can eventually put in a handicap pickleball court that will allow some of our citizens that have special needs to use the facility also. We appreciate the fact that you've gone beyond, got us the grant to improve the center. It's fabulous. Thank you so much. I think the big difference between the association we've put together and what's currently going on will be the transparency. All of the money will be accounted for. Nobody will make a dime. Every penny that comes in, we will use to improve the center. We will be able to buy our own nets. We'll be able to buy balls to teach kids in the summertime how to play. We'll be able to put on social events for the members and make it even more appealing to be a member, to keep it in the black, and to make Seal Beach a renowned facility for both tennis and pickleball. We don't want to take anything over. We just would like to help improve it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Mayor Roger Cowan, I'm a resident of Huntington Beach. I'd just like to say I had a great time playing over at the Seal Beach Center. We have a group of people. I don't really know what they're doing, but there's a bunch of people that want to improve the place. We all put a lot of time into helping people learn to play. We put time into fixing the nets, cleaning the nets, sweeping the courts. So it's people that want to, have extended themselves to help this place run better, and we really haven't been welcomed to do that for the most part. It's not well run. The facility, as far as the pickleball people, there's like 5 groups of 30 to 40 people, and there's people that represent those 5 groups that make sure people go in and check in and pay, make sure they can know about membership, make sure they go in and sign a waiver. The staff itself they're great people. Maybe they're understaffed. I don't know what it is, but it's not well run. So it can be done a lot better, more transparency. You have people that want to donate money, but they're not comfortable donating it under the current system. I've run facilities. I understand how to do this thing, but people are not comfortable, and the city should have more say, your public rep should have more say in how the money's spent there. It shouldn't be one person deciding how the money's spent. It just doesn't get spent well. So there's people that want to sweep, there's people who want to donate, the people want to make it better. Nobody wants to take over tennis. Nobody wants to do anything like that. We really want it's a hidden gem, and we just want to polish it up a bit. So, not a member of any of the new MOI that you're running here today, but we want people there are a lot of people that want to help and make it better. There's good people there. And if Brendan wants to run it and reach out to people to help, we want to help. There's no one against anybody there, so thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kathleen Fessenden. Thank you for your time. I sent you all an email, but I also want to thank you again for providing all of us the opportunity to play pickleball during COVID. It was a lifesaver for my spouse and myself. It was one place where we could go and enjoy life, so thank you for doing that. Also, thank Brenda for the hard work that she has put in to creating pickleball at the Pickleball Center. I would also like to give kudos to Mike, because Mike is the one man that is out there cleaning the courts all the time. He's sweeping, he's building nets, he's doing things to help support that, where I don't see that from the other person that runs the program. Also, the rest of the people at the Pickleball Center, the staff, they've been outstanding, but they only have so much time. They can't be out there in the courts helping us create a better environment. I do want to raise an issue that wasn't brought up to the Orange County Transportation Authority. I do wonder if some of the cracks on our courts that are primarily on the freeway side, if they are being created by some of the work that's being done on the freeway. So I'd like to bring that to your attention. They need to be aware of that. I forgot to tell that to you, Mike, on numerous occasions. I also like to support what Maureen said and what Roger said. I am not a part of this association, the Seal Beach Association. I'm not on the board, but from my understanding is that all the monies that they are to raise are to go back into the center and just to improve the courts and to provide opportunities for other people who may not have the opportunity to play pickleball and to learn the sport. And I look forward to supporting them and hopefully growing this sport and seeing it, just seeing it grow. Anyway, sorry. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other speakers tonight? Okay, seeing none, we'll close oral communications and move on to our city attorney's report.
Thank you, Mayor. No report this evening.
Okay. City Manager Ingram.
No report tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Council comments. We'll start with Councilmember Sestarsik.
Thank you, Mayor. In the last 2 weeks, I attended a Zoom meeting with the Registrar of Voters Office to give us an update on the voting system coming up in the elections this year, primary and the general election. I also attended an animal control study presentation. Thank you for Police Department for their work in gathering some information for that. And that's all. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Verapapa.
Nothing to report, thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Masalovich.
Just a quick one. You may have read an article in the LA Times about the release of genetically modified male mosquitoes into the breeding population to try and decrease the number of eggs that are dropped. That remains to be seen. Stay tuned. I'm sure, I don't know why it's such a big deal, but in any case, I'm sure I'll find out. And we'll know soon whether or not it works, and I hope it works. And that's all I have this time.
Thank you. Councilmember Moore.
Yes, thank you. I went to Night Among the Stars at the Los Alamitos Youth Center for the awards. They recognized 11 outstanding kids in our community that volunteer. They pick 11 out of 220 that are nominated. 5 of them were from Seal Beach, and 4 won $500 scholarships. And these kids are amazing. They're going to be very successful in life, and it was wonderful to see so many kids in our community. Some of them helped raise thousands of dollars for the youth center. Others volunteer for LEAF, the Leos, Girl Scouts, Rotary Club, and help out at community events, including almost every Seal Beach event. So it was a great thing, and that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. And before I got really sick, I attended the McGaw's version of the Pageant of the Masters, which was really incredible. You know, the little ones do such a great job. We got to see principals that we hadn't seen for many, many years when my kids were going through McGaw, such as John Blades, who was resplendent in a flashy sweater, as usual, and some of the teachers and so forth that we sort of grew up with. So it was very well done, and I think it raises funds and so forth for our McGaw programs. Okay, next are council items. Item A is City Council appointment to the Recreation and Parks Commission, District 3. It's the request of Councilmember Varapapa that the City Council appoint Tom McLaughlin to the Recreation and Parks Commission as a representative for District 3. So, Deputy City Clerk, will you handle that, please?
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mayor, City Council, and City Manager Ingram. This item is to fill a vacancy for the Recreation and Parks Commission for District 3. Tom Payne's resignation was received in the City Clerk's office on March 23, 2022. The notice of vacancy was posted March 23, 2022. Tom McLaughlin has been a resident of Seal Beach since 2011. Tom worked for Santa Monica Police Department for 21 years and currently volunteers and serves on the board of directors for the Santa Monica Family YMCA, Santa Monica Bay Area Human Relations Council, and the Santa Monica Police Activities League. He has an interest in recreation and parks and their well-being. The term of this appointment expires December of 2022. It is the request of Councilmember Varapapa that the City Council appoint Tom McLaughlin to the Recreation and Parks Commission as a representative for District 3. That concludes my presentation. I'm available for questions.
Thank you. Councilmember comments?
You ready for a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Second.
Great.
Whatever, whoever.
Please vote when that screen comes up.
Thank you.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Congratulations to Mr. McLaughlin. Okay, item B, at the request of Councilmember Moore, IT and the City Hall phone system is now going to be updated for us by Assistant City Manager Patrick Gallegos. Patrick.
All right, good evening, Mayor and members of the council. If you recall at a previous city council meeting, Councilmember Moore requested a technology update, and so tonight we'll provide all of you one. I'll talk about recent implementations, current projects, and provide you with the look forward. But before I do that, I think it's important to give you a snapshot of how we got here. And that's really how technology is playing a much larger role in how we operate and how it will continue to do so in years to come. It is no big secret that technology has become ubiquitous in our professional and private lives, amplified by a pandemic that has demanded we use platforms like Zoom, Teams, and others to communicate. It has also meant we've had to recalibrate how we do business and how we interact with the public. And like with most challenges one faces, there lies ample opportunity to improve. However, change is not always easy and oftentimes not always welcome. You add to that the pace at which we had to make changes was unprecedented and at times uncomfortable for the public and for staff. To really highlight this point, I want to briefly take you back to March of 2020 when our physical doors to City Hall may have been closed due to public health concerns, but the work here never stopped. In fact, not only did it not stop, the work became more substantial. Quite frankly, the city's role became more critical as we did our very best to assist residents and businesses with a myriad of concerns related to the global pandemic that is a once-in-a-generation catastrophe. Behind the scenes, city staff quickly came together and continued to be committed to our mission, which is to serve the public. This meant building a virtual city hall where staff could communicate and provide services from a remote environment. And while not perfect, the business of the city continued. As a result, today we have an amalgamation of services, both in-person and virtual, which gives us the public more options to obtain services. This greatly enhances the customer experience. While the pandemic undoubtedly accelerated these changes, we are now more nimble and simply better at providing services. Consequently, we have been more focused on implementing and budgeting for technology, which no doubt strengthens our capabilities overall. Next slide, please. So now I'd like to highlight some recent implementations that were performed in 2021 and 2022. Next slide, please. On this slide, you'll see a number of key accomplishments, but I'm going to briefly talk about the projects highlighted in yellow. As you know, we recently implemented new citywide financial software, which replaced our outdated Springbrook system. As you can imagine, the transition to an entirely new software system is complicated and time-consuming, but we hope that after all is said and done, we will be more efficient with our internal and external customers. Something that I know Councilmember Moore was really advocating for was a migration to Office 365. And while this constituted quite a bit of man-hours to implement, it has meant a world of difference in our operation, especially given the number of features that are offered on this platform, such as Teams and Microsoft projects, each of which have streamlined our project management abilities. I won't go into great detail about these next two additions since the police department has already done so in great detail at previous meetings, but I will say that the automated license plate readers, otherwise known as ALPRs, have given our officers more tools to prevent and solve crime, and the recent redesign of the police department website has increased the level of customer service they provide. Additionally, staff has made physical security enhancements to the Public Works Yard, Marina Center, the pump stations, Main Street, and First Street, which will better protect our valuable assets. Again, these are but a few of the technology projects that have been implemented. There are many more that are less glamorous and a lot more geeky, like installing new servers and fiber. And don't worry, I won't delve into those today, although I know more might want to do that at a later date. All of this is good work by our staff. And so right now I'd like to take a look forward and see what lies ahead. Next slide, please. On this slide, you'll notice we have a couple of highlighted projects related to phones and security. Set those aside for now, and we'll talk about them in just a bit. Right now, I want to highlight other key tasks that we are in the midst of performing are just as important. The IT master plan, which will eventually give us a comprehensive technology roadmap, is an endeavor that continues to be a priority, but has been delayed because of other pressing city matters. Nevertheless, this item is on our short list of projects to complete in the near term. Staff also has its sights on implementing a city app, as well as designing a new city website. Because of our more pronounced virtual environment, ensuring we have platforms that our residents, businesses, and visitors can use at their fingertips will be a key in making certain we are meeting the expectations and needs of those who seek our assistance. This is important when considering that a big chunk of Seal Beach's population has learned to use these platforms more often than not, and the pandemic has really sped up that learning curve. We are also researching and analyzing a variety of IT service ticket requests. We're also researching and analyzing a variety of IT service ticket software, including programs that will act as a centralized repository for requests. Whether these requests are received via phone, email, or in person, this type of software will make us more efficient, help us prioritize tickets, and ensure that we responded to each of these requests in a more timely manner. Additionally, we wanted to highlight some of the infrastructure enhancements that have taken place at the Tennis and Pickleball Center. Recently, improvements have been made to increase internet connectivity speed and ramp up security. This is important as the center has seen a higher volume of customers, as was noted earlier, and these advancements will assist in making sure we can meet the demand. Next slide, please. So now let's talk about the citywide phone system enhancements, which is something the city hadn't aspired to upgrade in decades. Well, the time is now. As many of you know, the city was dealt a heavy blow a few months back when we were unexpectedly informed by one of our phone providers that our non-emergency phone system was going to be terminated. Not only did this happen, but it really put us on our heels and required us to work even harder to do something we often take for granted, receive and make telephone calls. Luckily, we have an exceptional team that put in the extra hours to ensure we maintained our service levels. It wasn't easy, but we made it work until we were back online. To ensure we are never put in that position again, we are working on redesigning our network to minimize outages for all city phones and computers by implementing a cloud-based system. However, as we transition to a cloud-based system, redundant connectivity becomes a necessity, and we must address the inherent security threats. Next slide, please. With that in mind, we have improved our asset tracking and software documentation and have been conducting employee security awareness training and testing. Additionally, we are implementing multi-factor authentication with the goal of having all cloud-based resources and remote access secured via multi-factor authentication. Next slide, please. Technology is something you never complete because there is no end to its progress. And as such, the city will always be chasing the next new software and hardware apparatus. But it does not mean we do this carelessly. Our staff will contemplate deliberately and thoughtfully about the technological advancements we procure, and most importantly, make certain that we can afford it. Lastly, I want to thank my IT team, who I work really closely with, and that's Management Analyst Kevin Edwards and Management Analyst Jennifer Robles, and who's not here with us tonight, Sean Robles. Or Sean Robles, Sean Sabo, my mistake. Sorry, John. As well as Synoptic staff and countless other staff members who have worked tirelessly to ensure we continue to perform the city's business in the face of daunting circumstances. Thank you for your time, Mayor and members of the council, and with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Councilmember Moore.
Yeah, thank you, Patrick, for the presentation, and you've done a great job over the past few years of moving along the technology. I remember when I first started, we get packets for each council meeting about this thick, and now it's all electronic. We have iPads, and we vote on the iPads, and it's just so much nicer, and we're saving a lot of trees, but as well. The Office 365 was great. It took a while, but it happened last year, and I think that's been a nice improvement for the city. We use it for all of our customers. I'm in the IT company. The IT ticketing is going to be very helpful, I think, too, for the whole city, for the management team to see when a call or email comes in, if it creates a ticket, and you can see how long that ticket takes to resolve. All of a sudden, you have a management tool to help see how productive the different departments are, and it should help make things more efficient. And with the phones, when the phones went down a few months ago, it was frustrating because I know how in the IT business, we're using voice over IP already, and it's so nice. You get a call, it converts it to an email, and you can see the call come in on your email, and you can respond without having to even talk to the person. So, and as well as it'll look like if someone calls you at your desk, it'll ring your cell phone, and you can answer the phone like you're at the office. So it's going to be a really big improvement, I think, when the city goes to voice over IP, and you're going to wonder why we didn't go sooner. So, but thanks again, and that was a good presentation.
Welcome to the 21st century.
Mike? Anything? Shelley? Thank you, Patrick, very much. We really appreciate it. It's a ton of work. Okay, consent calendar. Items on the consent calendar are considered to be routine and are enacted by a single motion, with the exception of items removed by council members. So we'll now call for a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar with the exception of item G.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Please vote.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Okay. Second. So now we're going to do item G.
Mayor, I'll have to abstain from this item. I'm on the board.
Correct.
of the Pickleball Association, so I will be leaving until this item's over.
You'll be able to. Thank you. Okay, item G is the approval of Memorandum of Understanding between the City of Seal Beach and the Seal Beach Pickleball Association, that the City Council adopt Resolution 7271, 1, approving a Memorandum of Understanding, MOU, between the City of Seal Beach and the Seal Beach Pickleball Association, SBPA, and 2, authorizing the city manager to execute the MOU, make minor technical adjustments as needed, and extend the MOU on an annual basis up to 3 times. So are we ready to
Yes.
take this up now? I'll call on our Community Development Director, Alexis Middle.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Tonight's item is for the Seal Beach Tennis and Pickleball Center and a Memorandum of Understanding. Over the past 2 years, the Seal Beach Tennis and Pickleball Center has seen a huge shift in our activity. And we've reached a new audience through pickleball, which is just amazing, as everyone has spoken to this evening. We now have 17 pickleball courts and about 180 pickleball members compared to 5 just before the pandemic. In order to provide increased service to this audience, staff is recommending approval of a Memorandum of Understanding with a nonprofit, the Seal Beach Pickleball Association. The SBPA is a volunteer organization and is made up of pickleball players that currently utilize the center and are looking for a way to improve services within the facility. Thank you. The MOU lays out the ground rules of the relationship between the city and the SBPA. Generally speaking, the city is agreeing to designate the SBPA as the primary entity to coordinate and promote pickleball at the center. The SBPA will plan and execute pickleball events and promote the sport. The MOU is also designed to protect the city by covering costs. The SBPA will still pay for their court fees. They'll cover staff costs if additional staff are needed for large events, and they'll also share 10% of the net profits with the city. The profit shares from events will be used to improve the facility. This is a new venture, and staff is dedicated to working collaboratively with the SBPA, our facility users, our existing staff and tennis partners, and increasing service levels through that teamwork. The MOU has a 1-year date with an option to renew to allow us time to work through what's bound to be a little bit of give and take as we get started. It's a new venture, but again, staff is committed to improving the center and providing new service wherever that option is. With that, I'm available for questions.
All right, do we have any council comments on this item?
This is a 501c3.
Correct.
So it is, by definition, a nonprofit. And the money made in tournaments and entry fees, things like that, what happens to it?
For a tournament, I mean, we would be looking at, a true-up of the money to determine what 10% of net profits are. That would be shared with the city. The way this MOU is set up, the nonprofit would retain 90% of the profits. Now, we have been told that, their intention is to put it into the center as well. But the city would not be responsible for what happens to that money.
And,
Okay.
well, in Section 17 of the MOU says that the association has to remain a nonprofit throughout the term, and that shall use the revenue it generates pursuant to this MOU to promote the sport of pickleball in Seal Beach, which is the corporate purpose of the
Yeah.
entity. So
Yeah.
they can only use it for the purposes of the corporation. But that's in the MOU.
Yeah. Now, the 10% that the city gets, what do we do with it? We put it in our Parks and Rec fee, fund?
Yeah, for a portion of it, so the 10% of net that's sold at the pro shop, you know, if the sweatshirts, whatever it may be, that 10% will go to offset staffing costs of the pro shop and finance costs of doing the money and so forth, and the other portion would be put into a special fund for use at the tennis center.
Okay. Sounds pretty clean.
Shelley?
Yeah, I had some questions. I read most of the resolution and all the items in there. I've only, heard about this few days ago, so I wasn't sure exactly why we needed a change and how the members are picked, or, since this is putting control of tournaments and reservations and things like that. I guess it was the need for this and how that would affect tennis or Brenda. I don't think I understand, at all how that's happening, and that's a little concerning to me that I'm voting on something I don't really understand.
Sure. Let me try to address a few of those. The city's role at the center remains the same. We are still in charge of the center. We are still in charge of working with different groups to, make these events come to fruition. Deborah's contract with us is very tennis focused. It's pages and pages of tennis. With regards to this nonprofit, the SBPA, they are still going through us for their events. We will still approve events. They will still reserve, courts and things like that. We aren't truly turning anything over to them. It's intended to be a partnership where they would come to us, for example, and say, hey, we want tournaments on these 3 dates, and this is what the expectation is. If they're going to be large tournaments, they need to submit an event plan to us, and that's included in the MOU for our review and approval. So there is going to be a process in place. We will hold, in the beginning, monthly meetings, although the MOU talks about quarterly meetings with them to make sure that everything is running well, is running smoothly, that the relationship is working. We will certainly be talking with Brenda and the other staff members at the tennis center to make sure that this is beneficial for everyone.
So with I thought there were maybe 4 tournaments or something. One of the things I read, I thought it said there were 4 tournaments. So would the number of tournaments be increasing? I mean, something like that might have an impact on my neighborhood. I have a park and a neighborhood right there that, so I just wondered what kind of impact. Also, I had a relationship when I was on Parks and Rec with there was a friends group for the dog park, and when the dog park was opened, it was set up to have a friends group run it so the city wouldn't have to run it. Well, some people wanted events and other people didn't, and I personally came into the city and said, this is not working, this is really not working, and the city said, no, they are happy to take it back over. So while I applaud enthusiasm, and I think it's great when people volunteer, I would like to understand a little more about impact on what we have and whatever. I would actually appreciate having a continuance until I can get more information about what exactly we're really agreeing to.
Okay. If I could just offer one thing, I think, to some degree, we don't know exactly. We don't know what that sweet spot is. The idea is to promote pickleball, so I would, say that yes, there would probably be more events, but when do we get to the point where it's too many events, or, where other people are being pushed out? I don't think we know that right now. I think that's going to be part of the process.
And will that have an impact on playing if you're filling it up with tournaments? I realize the intent is very good, raise money, help out the center, but where there's a line that where when you all of a sudden members can't play or
right. Yes, and the last thing we want to do is have members feel like they're not benefiting from their membership.
And then you end up
Yeah.
So, anyway, that's my opinion. Thank you.
Just to be clear, was there a feeling by the folks who were instrumental in founding the Pickleball Association part of this, that with the exponential growth of pickleball, that the current staffing, whether it be by Ms. Danielson and/or city employees, was not going to be able to handle the activity that seems to be happening, as I said, exponentially?
I don't know that I could answer that question. I feel like I'd be answering on their behalf, but I can tell you what was relayed to me is that there is a desire for more pickleball events, and just improving and increasing the sport.
And the city will still be the ultimate entity that will decide whether we have too many tournaments or not enough tournaments.
Yes.
And whatever other controls that we need to exert to make sure that neighborhoods are not impacted negatively, and that the facility itself isn't, overrun with enthusiastic pickleball players.
Yes, no, we want there to be room for all.
I understand. And I assume also that this was, the MOU's been vetted by our city attorney as to having all the proper language and so forth.
Yes, sir. I wrote it.
Congratulations.
More than vetted.
Very nice.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead, Tom.
What's the difference between what Brenda's does and what this organization will do, and how will it work with two separate groups?
Brenda's contract provides a base salary. I would say there are probably some similarities. The contract does outline what her role is, which includes management of some of the other tennis instructors, making sure we have good tennis instructors, that they're working well with the clientele, managing some of, kind of the lessons, different tournaments and things like that happen in the tennis world. So this will be in parallel for events per se, but the nonprofit will not have any role in managing staff or making decisions regarding, who's a good instructor or not good instructor. I mean, we always welcome input from everyone, but that will not be under their purview the way that it is under Brenda's for tennis. She is an employee of the center.
So is it mainly to have like pickleball tournaments and things like that would hopefully attract more people to pickleball?
I think that's the gist of it, yeah.
And I saw in the agreement, it's a 1 year, so could we have staff come back in a year and if it's approved, present to us kind of how things are going and so on?
We can certainly come back for an update. I don't know if you want to.
Well, I was also going to note that it's 1 year, but it's also can be terminated on 30 days' notice. So it's essentially a 30-day contract if something goes wrong.
And then finally, will they share with us, like they'll get 90%, will they share the accounting of that 90%?
Yeah, we'll need to see it to verify, yeah.
C3,
Yeah.
of course.
Okay, okay.
Let's see, did you have any other questions, Shelley?
Yeah, it's just the reservation part, I guess. I guess I just have I'm not sure I understand how a group is giving reservations, how that's different than the city. Is that just assisting? So I just don't understand.
Their role, in terms of a reservation, it's because that they have, through the city, booked an event. And they will take, like signups for that event, for the number of courts that they have reserved through the city. They will not be receiving any other kind of reservation that is currently handled by the city and will continue to be handled by the city. So they would be, heck, it's June 1st and we're going to hold a tournament. We're going to reserve these 6 courts for this many hours. And then they would be able to advertise and promote that event to have people join it. So reservation is maybe not quite the right word in this case. So
Booking,
yeah.
Okay.
so to speak.
And so if the number of tournaments increases, how does that affect the ability of the members who are not in the tournament to come and play, whether it be pickleball or tennis?
Mm-hmm. And I mean, we have pickleball events now and tennis events now, and it's definitely just kind of trying to balance those two things and make sure that we don't go too far overboard.
Just curious about the value of your membership and if,
And there won't be any overlap between tennis and pickleball when it comes to tournaments, because we're not going to be converting tennis courts to pickleball for tournaments.
And vice versa.
I don't imagine.
I wouldn't say that's a daily practice. Never say never. But yeah, no, we would be working with Brenda and the tennis group in addition to, again, try to maintain a balance.
Okay, and then we are giving permission then to the Pickleball Association to produce and sell T-shirts, hats, and any other items
That's correct.
that we
yes.
then get some of the profits. I mean, one of the things that I'm hearing is that, we've had a tennis center that didn't have pickleball before. I mean, it wasn't active, maybe there were a couple of courts, and then, slowly and slowly, and then quickly and quickly and exponentially that, it's really taken off. But, I'm still hearing that volunteers are sweeping the courts, and doing those things that are not being done by the existing staff that we have. And so if that's the case, wouldn't there be an advantage to have a parallel association that is occupying so many courts to have volunteers that want to manicure and keep those courts in great shape that we don't have the current ability to do?
I think, yeah, I mean, of course, we want everyone to participate, and for those that are willing to contribute in that way, of course, it's great. It's a large facility.
Okay, well, the fact that it's basically a 30-day contract, if we choose it to be, and a 1-year commitment that would be totally reviewable at that time, and we have a bunch of enthusiastic people that want to keep furthering the promotion of pickleball, not to the detriment of tennis. I would be in favor of doing this at this time. Any other comments? Okay, then I'll entertain a motion and a second.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, please vote.
Motion carries 3 votes in favor, 3-1, and noting that Mayor Pro Tem abstained.
I don't think I caught that. Could you?
Oh, and can't hear me? Sorry. Motion carries 3-1,
Okay,
noting that Mayor Pro Tem abstained from this item.
very good. Thank you. All right. We have no public hearings. We have no unfinished or continued business. However, we do have new business.
Mayor, excuse me, if we could just take a moment for Mayor Pro Tem Vera Papa to come back into the room.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank
Who's
you.
he again? could have just said, hey. You could have just said, hey, don't forget to play.
Thank you.
Is it here? Did my best.
Thank you.
I only have one slide.
It's raining outside.
I mean, I only have one slide.
Rode your bike, did you?
No, it's raining.
Not very much.
But I mean, it's. Could we have the sergeant at arms? Okay, we'll continue. We now have new business, and this will be the first reading of ordinance adopting a military equipment use policy per California Assembly Bill 481 that the City Council, one, introduce for first reading by title only and waive further reading of Ordinance 1694, an ordinance of the City of Seal Beach Council establishing a military equipment use policy, and two, schedule the second reading of Ordinance 1694 for April 25th of 2022. So this is Chief Gonchak's item, but I see he has found a more apt proponent of this item.
Well, thank you, Mayor. I'd love to take credit for this, but to be honest with you, Lieutenant Julia Clasby is here before all of you, and it seems she's got some poor sinuses, but I promise you she took a COVID test before coming in here and tested negative. So with all due respect, she's done an inordinate amount of work on this process, and believe it or not, has become quite the county resource here for all number of different chiefs in our county as well as throughout Southern California, and has made this presentation to the entire SWAT command teams for all of our county as well. So with all due amount of respect to her, please, Julia, take it away. Thank you for all your work.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, Mayor, City Council, City Manager Ingram, and staff. My name is Lieutenant Julia Clasby. I oversee the Support Services Bureau for the Seal Beach Police Department. I'm sorry for my situation. I have 3 children, and everybody got sick and then gave it to me. So, but I'm better than I was a week ago. We're going to have a quick presentation for you, and but I wanted to cover, like the mayor addressed, Assembly Bill 481 and how Seal Beach PD is adhering to the policies that it requires. Does not work. Oh, there we go. Okay. Thank you, sir. California Assembly Bill 481 went into law January 1st of this year. Specifically, the law concerns funding, acquisition, and the use of military equipment as defined by the bill by law enforcement agencies. Per Assembly Bill 481, agencies must create a policy regarding all defined equipment, which includes product description, purchase price, expected lifespan, training requirements, legal considerations, purpose, and quantity. Agencies are also required to first obtain approval for this policy content from their respective governing body, which is you. This includes a 30-day public review period where the policy is posted to the city website prior to the city council approval and community engagement meeting, which is our council meetings. The bill requires that the approval is done by ordinance, which is why there's an ordinance before you. The ordinance may be updated with new purchases or on an annual basis with an annual report. Our policy was posted to the Seal Beach City and police websites on March 7th, 2022. And following this introduction and first reading of the ordinance and policy tonight, I will be back on April 25th for a second reading to complete the approval process. Following the approval, agencies are further required to submit an annual military equipment report to the City Council for as long as equipment is available for use, and must hold at least one community engagement meeting within 30 days of submitting and publicly releasing the annual report each year. Additionally, anytime an agency wants to purchase any new equipment, they must amend the policy and go through the review and approval process again. The agency seeking to continue to use all equipment acquired prior to January 1st of 2022 have until May 1st, 2022 to commence the city council approval process described by the statute, which is why I'm here tonight. The government code gives a complete listing of what it has defined as military equipment. And it includes a long list of things. The list is about 15 items within the government code, and also you can see that described in the policy. And I am not the person to explain what those items are for you. So with that, I would like to introduce Corporal Pete Kroc, who is a long-standing member of the West County SWAT team, and he's going to explain to you briefly about what the items are that are included in the policy that you're reading. Sir. Yeah, just what's on the... I want to look at... starting with this one. Just like one.
It looks like Pete is wearing most of the items that we're going to be discussing.
You can go to each one, but it'll be on the screen.
While he's putting that together, I can address the first one, which is obviously the unmanned aircraft system, or something we call a UAS system, also known as the drone system. This is the DJI Inspire 2, which is actually one of our drones. We have several of them that are used for a number of different things, one including... For each drone there's... one including oceanic needs, as Chief Bailey just asked me if he needs to include another staff report for his item that is not needed, so just to cover that base. But some of the things that we use it for are, missing children, believe it or not, someday maybe even missing dogs, but you never know. Currently, today we used one on another operation dealing with a suicidal subject, so neighbor needs, lost citizen needs, fire department needs, just a few to go over. Let me show you a couple more pictures of our drone systems. So DJI Mavic 2 Enterprise Dual, and of course we're talking about technology earlier with Assistant City Manager Gallegos. So these things have a tendency to develop more technology capabilities for your police department as well as a number of different bureaus within the city. There's the DJI FPV. This is our indoor drone or first-person view drone. That's what the FPV stands for. Very quiet and something that we use on tactical callouts as well. And I'm going to turn it over to Pete for our 40-millimeter launcher.
Mr. Mayor and council members, thank you for having me. And stop me if you have any questions as I go through these rather briefly, and I'll explain more in depth. The 40-millimeter launcher is kind of the evolution of what we used to use more frequently, a less lethal shotgun, beanbag rounds. These are versatile launchers that shoot foam rounds, which are impact rounds, as well as gas rounds to affect, CS gas and that type of thing. Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me okay? Thank you. So, one of the rounds we use is the Defense Technology Exact Impact 40-millimeter round, which is a kinetic energy device. We shoot as a less lethal munition at a suspect who is warrants that type of deployment. Is it okay? I'm going to take this off. Thank you. Okay, so we also have less lethal shotguns. These are Remington 870 12-gauge shotguns, which use a 12-gauge less lethal stabilized sock round in the same way that we would use those foam impact rounds from the 40-millimeter.
Do you want to just look at the screen? Because that's the next.
Oh, you can. So these are our patrol rifles. They're Colt AR-15 in .223 caliber, which are just your run-of-the-mill sporting rifles that we use to deploy when we think that there's going to be possibility of an armed suspect, and we need to kind of match that level of firepower. This is another version of the same rifle. It's just made by a different manufacturer. This is a submachine gun. It's an H&K MP7, which is used by our sniper team and investigative units. It's just a small version of basically the same type of rifle with a different bullet, and it's more concealable. We can put it in a backpack. We can carry it alongside a sniper rifle and that type of thing. So these are the types of rounds that are fired from those weapons. 55 grain frangible is a training round which won't penetrate through hard barriers. Silver tip is our expanding round, which we'll use for duty use, and then the FMJ is a full metal jacket. That's just a training round that's cheaper than the others to use. 4.6 by 30 millimeter is the MP7 round. That's the submachine gun round. It's a very tiny round, but it's very similar in its application. The Pepperball launcher from Tippmann is what we use in riot control for the deployment of pepper balls, which can be deployed like near people, on people, in spaces we want to see if people are hiding, that type of thing. And we can also use inert balls that don't have any agent in them, and we can also use glass break rounds to break out windows. And here are the aforementioned pepper balls. They would strike people, and a little cloud of OC pops out and makes people very uncomfortable, makes them cough, makes them not want to do what they're doing anymore. This is a shared resource in the West County SWAT team. There's a 5-city team. It's a armored rescue vehicle, which will stop pretty much every bullet that can be shot at us legally, and then some that would not be legal to shoot at us. It'll also stop those up to 50 caliber. We use that to protect ourselves as we deploy on warrant services and things like that, and also to effect rescues. Our mobile command post vehicle is another shared resource in the county, and it's deployed on any major incident or any pre-planned incident where we would need tactical dispatch or any command post or coordination. LSDDs, or light sound diversionary devices, are otherwise known as flashbangs, and these are devices which we deploy which produce an incredibly bright light and a very loud sound, and it will distract or delay the response of a suspect as we perform an action, either entering a room or breaching a breach point, something like that. Our sting ball grenade is similar to any of our less lethal munitions, our impact munitions. These are more for distraction and compliance. Once they get deployed, they shoot out a lot of small rubber balls that are very painful. So that stops people from continuing their actions as well. Chemical agents and smoke canisters, these are our 40 millimeter rounds, which I spoke of before. The 40 millimeter CS round and OC round. CS gas is a little different than OC. OC is like pepper spray, and CS gas will fill a space and pretty much drive anybody out. We use it for area of denial, and we also use it to drive people out of a space if they're not complying and on a surrounding call out type of thing. These are hand deployable CS gas canisters, which will be deployed into either via the Bearcat ram, the gas ram, by hand, or in burn safe canisters to prevent fires from happening inside houses. We deploy these inside a location or in a riot situation, and it will disperse a crowd. These are launchable CS, so we use that 40 millimeter launcher, and we'll shoot these either through barriers into a location, into drywall, and fill a house with gas. Our kinetic breaching tool is basically a battering ram to break through a breach point, but it uses pistol caliber blanks to drive a piston out into the door and breaks it open. This is another shared resource in the county. It's a robot that we use to perform reconnaissance inside a location before we enter it to make sure that we're not going to get ambushed. And our LRAD, or long-range acoustic device, is something we mount on top of our Bearcat, the armored rescued vehicle. It's like a giant loudspeaker you can hear for, I think, about 2 or 3 miles.
This is an aerial view from a drone as described by Chief Gonchak, and this is from a recent SWAT deployment overlooking a residence on Crestview where the majority of these resources were actually used, including the Bearcat, which you see at the very top in the driveway. You can't see on this, the drone footage ended up not transferring well to our PowerPoint, but off where the 0.7 is, I think behind there is the mobile command post using the drone to get this aerial view. And for us, all of these resources working together are tremendously helpful. I think you can see, just as Corporal Croc is talking, I couldn't have told you those things in the way that he did. And just to kind of expand on what he was saying, again, we are part of the West County SWAT team, so part of our part of what I had to include in the policy and also the ordinance is the shared resources that we have on our SWAT team. Per Assembly Bill 481, any shared resources that could be used in our jurisdiction, either borrowed or leased or used for any type of situation, had to be listed. So prior to this meeting, I met with all of the West County SWAT commanders and discussed having the exact same language in all of our policies for our shared resources. The Bearcat resides in Westminster, in the city of Westminster. The mobile command post resides in the city of Cypress. The robot that you saw and the LRAD system are both with the city of Westminster, but we are able to use those shared resources for whatever we need, as evidenced by this recent SWAT call out, and that we were able to use and take people in custody safely and for the safety of our officers. I'm going to turn it over to Chief Gonchak, and then I'll be available for questions after.
Thank you both very much for presenting that to our council. I think before we turn it over to questions, it's important to note a few important things that if I were to look back over the last, specifically, I guess, 17 years as a SWAT operator, SWAT sniper, and eventually SWAT commander of our team here in the West County region, which is responsible for 5 different police agencies. There's not a single one of these items that we are in possession of that are used in abundance. These items are used on a basis need only, and every purchase we make is an absolute necessity. So before we make another purchase forthcoming that reaches to one of these particular items that will come before you within the next year, which I believe we have to do every year, and update this list with all of you, the request will be made out of a need rather than abundance. And I think it's important that we note that specifically with all the questions and items that have become in relevance to police reform as the past has been presented to each and every one of you, not just in this council meeting, but on a number of different news television outlets, as well as some of the incidents that have occurred within our city as well on Main Street with a particular protest we had about 1.5 years ago. So with that, I want to make sure that everybody understands that these items are used for the safety of our community in mind at first, and then obviously the safety of our officers second. And then we are always here to answer questions, show off our equipment whenever needed, and are at your disposal whenever each and every single one of you would like to see any of them. And that is all we have. Thank you very much. Questions?
Councilmember Moore?
Yeah, I just want to comment on I've seen the drone work on Main Street, and I think it really improves our ability to leverage our police department to be much more effective because they can monitor a large crowd over, with a lot less work. And also, if a crowd starts to gather in a certain part of the city, you send the drone out right away. And so I think that's a great thing that's been implemented. So that's it.
Thank you, sir.
I just want to let everyone know that I trust the chief without question, without doubt in my mind, that he would not abuse in any way, or he would not order this kind of equipment if it wasn't something that he felt we needed to have. And in a perfect world, we wouldn't need to have this stuff. And it just breaks my heart to see that we have to have this kind of equipment to take care of bad people. You know, it's just, I don't know. It's just the old hippie in me, maybe. I don't know. But I do have a question about one of the pieces of equipment. This microphone that you put on top of the Humvee or whatever it was, your armored vehicle,
Yes, ma'am.
and you said that it has a radius of about 2 miles of picking up the conversation.
No, it's not a microphone, it's a speaker.
Can you take your
Speaker.
mask off, please?
It's a speaker, ma'am. It's not a microphone.
It's a speaker picking up,
It projects sound out.
it projects our sound out to them.
Yes.
Okay. I thought you were looking for their sound
No, they have,
to you.
We need
Okay.
we need a search warrant to
there's
do that.
nothing like that in existence.
You think?
This would, good question, Councilmember Masalabat. This, to be honest with you, this is the same system that the Naval Weapons Station uses during their exercises. The only purpose for this system is to cause diversion or notification to the residents or the residents that are surrounding the resident that we are actually trying to
Okay.
obtain compliance with. This is not a listening device, and anytime we actually need to implement or throw in a listening device into a residence, we need a search warrant. So
Okay.
this is not one of them.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilmember Sistarsik. No, I think that, to sort of echo Councilmember Masalovitz's comments, that it's too bad we've come to this, but if we have come to this, let's be properly equipped and be able to take advantage of the technology. I mean, the weaponry aside, the use of the various types of drones, have an incredible number of positive uses, whether it's searching for lost people, for, searching for an expansion of fires. The more drones, the better in that sense. And the others, we just have to use our good judgment. So, any other comments? Okay, then I'll call for a motion and a second.
Second.
Okay, and please vote.
Councilmember Masalavit, how do you vote?
It's not on my screen. Yes.
Thank you.
Found.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. And Craig, you have a,
It's ordinance number 1694, an ordinance of the Seal Beach City Council adopting a military equipment use policy.
thank you. All right, item J. This is a notice of intent to overrule the Airport Land Use Commission, ALUC, for Orange County finding of housing element inconsistency. that the City Council, number one, adopt Resolution 7273, notifying the Orange County Airport Land Use Commission and the Division of Aeronautics of the California Department of Transportation of the city's intention to find that the general planned 2021 through 2029 housing element is consistent with the purposes of the State Aeronautics Act and overrule the Orange County Airport Land Use Commission's determination that the housing element is inconsistent with the 2017 Joint Forces Training Base Los Alamitos Airport Environs Land Use Plan. And number two, authorize the city manager to submit Resolution 7273 to the Orange County Airport Land Use Commission and the State Division of Aeronautics and schedule a public hearing pursuant to Public Utilities Code Section 21676. And our Community Development Director, Alexis Middle, will take this on.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, and there are going to be a number of clicks, so hang in there with me. All right. Okay. The item before you tonight is the notice to overrule the Airport Land Use Commission, which in February found our adopted housing element to be inconsistent with their Airport Environs Land Use Plan. Their action triggers a decision that must be made by the City Council, and that's what I'll be walking you through tonight. So let's start with what the commission or the ALUC is. ALUCs were created by the state, and they were given the following duties in the Public Utilities Code. And that's to assist local agencies to ensure compatible land uses near airports, to coordinate planning at the state, local, and regional levels, and to provide orderly development for air transportation while at the same time protecting public health, safety, and welfare. Not yet. To prepare and adopt an airport land use plan compatibility plan and execute those first two steps. They are also tasked with reviewing certain plans and actions by local agencies as provided by law. In Orange County, we have 3 airports that are overseen by our local ALUC or commission. John Wayne Airport, the Fullerton Airport, and the Joint Forces Training Base, which is the one that's of course relevant to us here. And in general, they're an advisory board on land use planning matters near airports. When they review plans, they make either a finding of consistency or inconsistency. They make those findings based on their adopted airport land use plan, and this is really an important tool. It's something that different jurisdictions use whenever they're doing land use planning around an airport. It provides guidance and guidelines on what the city should expect from the commission, and staff does use it as a reference document. The land use plan for the base specifically states, and I quote, "It seeks to protect the public from the adverse effects of aircraft noise, to ensure that people in facilities are not concentrated in areas susceptible to aircraft accidents, and to ensure that no structures or activities adversely affect navigable airspace." So we're going to first look at a couple of maps that come from that land use plan. This first map from their land use plan provides height limitations for structures, and I am aware that it's very hard to read. In fact, if you just print the document, it's still kind of hard to read. But the concept of it is to make sure that there aren't a bunch of buildings that are so tall that they interrupt the functions of the airport, that they would cause it to be difficult for an aircraft to land or take off. And of course, the further away from the airport you get, then the taller the buildings can be. Use of this map and these boundaries is how the commission reviews development proposals for height, and none of the proposed Seal Beach housing opportunity sites contained in our housing element are in conflict with these limitations. And also under our own general plan, we would not propose something that's so high that it would interfere with these limits. The second map contains a couple important elements. The first are the noise contour lines. If you want to hit that button for me, we're going to get an arrow here. There we go. So you can see these two boundaries that surround the area, and their decibel contour lines, their noise contour lines at 60 and 65 decibels. So naturally, the closer you are to the airport, then the more impacted you might be by noise that could be generated there. The other point of interest on these maps are the clear zones. You want to click for me? Thank you. And these are located at either end of the runway, and they identify areas of danger and must be kept clear from development. According to the airport land use plan, there are no accident potential zones outside of these identified clear zones. And we are going to talk about these two issues again because they do come up as we look at our housing element development. So under the Public Utilities Code, a general plan or general plan amendment must be submitted to the commission for consistency review. In other words, is our land use plan consistent with their land use plan? And in this case, they are contending that it's not. So they found our housing element consistent at their February 17th hearing. These are the commission's findings of inconsistency. First, that aircraft noise emanating from airports may be incompatible with general welfare of the inhabitants. Number two, the commission is charged with assisting local agencies in ensuring compatible land use in the vicinity of the airport and to coordinate planning for orderly development. And the third finding was that land use may be found inconsistent if it places people so they are adversely affected by aircraft noise and concentrates people in areas susceptible to aircraft accidents. So with this finding of inconsistency, the city does need to take action. What's proposed tonight is to adopt a resolution stating that the city's intent to override the findings of the commission of these three findings. Next, we will go over these findings in particular, but I do want to take this quick opportunity to note that if the city ultimately votes to overrule the commission, then under the State Public Utilities Code, the airport operator is immune from liability for damages to property or personal injury caused by or resulting from the decision to overrule. So at the meeting, and the minutes reflect this, though the commission letter, the findings letter does not, the commission was really only concerned with one of the opportunity sites that's contained in the housing element, and that's the site at the Old Ranch Country Club golf course. So this is an aerial of the vicinity. We've got the base, if you want to click that. And we have two other opportunity sites in the housing element that were not much discussed at the commission meeting that are pretty close to the base there. And then finally, we have the opportunity sites that were discussed extensively, and these are not drawn to scale. They're sort of a little bit eyeballed, but you can see where they are. And these are proposed in our housing element for 120 units in total, the red dots there. This is an excerpt from our housing element that just gives you a little bit closer look at what those two bubbles look like. And you can see that they're kind of on the southwestern edge of the golf course there along Lamson. I did just want to briefly mention that there was a momentary discussion on the Old Ranch Town Center site, one of the other opportunity sites for mixed use. So I'm sharing this graphic from the land use proposal from the mid-90s for the Bixby Ranch at large that was presented to the commission at that time, and it was found consistent with their land use plan. And this information was presented to the commission on February 17th by their own staff while they presented our housing element. So the commission really focused their discussion on the other sites. If you want to do a couple more clicks there. Ultimately was developed, as you know, there in the green. Those are residential units now. There's about 77 homes, and then the blue became the Old Ranch Town Center. And these were consistent at the time. So the findings of inconsistency, the first finding was related to noise and compatibility. So here are those noise contour graphics that we looked at before, are 60 and 65 decibels. The sites are on there now as well, so these red dots, and as you can see, none of them are inside the 65 decibel contour line. We've got the one that's in between the 60 and the 65, and the other that's outside of that. So when the airport land use plan, what it says, and this table is from their plan, is that a residential development is conditionally consistent with the 60 decibel contour as long as the house is sound attenuated, which is essentially insulated, so that the interior of the unit is at 45 decibels or lower at a noise level. And this requirement is the same as the city's own general plan requirement, and it's also consistent with the California Building Code. All units are required to be 45 decibels or below, regardless of whether they're near the airport or not. And for some additional context, yep, thank you. And pertinent to our earlier conversation tonight, so this graphic is from the city's general plan noise element. This is 22 years old, and shows the noise contour lines that are generated by the I-405 in this very area. So as you can see, noise levels generated by the freeway impact this general vicinity as it is, including College Park East, College Park West, and some of Leisure World there, at levels up to 70 decibels in this case. The second finding from the commission was about ensuring compatible land uses in the vicinity of the airport and to coordinate planning for orderly development. For this finding, unlike the noise piece where we can kind of go back and look at that chart and say, look, we're outside of these contour lines, we're conditionally consistent or consistent depending on which site you're looking at, we don't have that same level of data on this particular finding. There were no specifics or guidelines. So this is really about the city's ability to make land use decisions. So this map again just shows the general vicinity where you have a lot of urban uses, primarily housing, but also commercial uses. And the opportunity sites there are on the golf course. They are the furthest from the airport on the golf course. They're across the street from developed uses, and in terms of distance, they're further from the base than other residential areas. You can see College Park East right there. We have the Centex homes there above the town center, and residential further north of that are all close to the base. I do want to note that I did try to obtain some information on the amount of air traffic at the base, and unfortunately it wasn't something that the Airport Commission staff had to give to us, and the base was unfortunately generally unresponsive in the time that I was reaching out to them. I did get a quick voicemail back, but I haven't gotten data yet. And because this is a military airport, it's not like a commercial airport where you're going to have statistics and things like that available through the FAA or other resources. Our third and final finding of the commission was the statement that land use may be found inconsistent in places where people have been adversely affected by aircraft noise, and we have discussed the noise issue, and additionally concentrates people in areas susceptible to aircraft accidents. So again, staff, when these sites were picked, we're looking at the airport land use plan as a reference, which identifies these sites, these clear zones there with the green arrows. And the opportunity sites are not within the clear zones, and as mentioned, no other accident potential zones are identified beyond these clear zones within the airport land use plan. So these are your options. It's 3 choices here. As a result of the finding of inconsistency, you're going to need to pick one, and one option is to do nothing. And this would likely result in the commission deciding to exercise their right to review all development permits for consistency, which would significantly slow development processes within the city if everything is taken to the commission and found consistent or inconsistent, and then we're back here having this conversation again. The second option is to amend the housing elements. You could direct staff to remove that site, that opportunity site at the golf course, and place the units elsewhere in the city. Just remember, it's a zero-sum game for the housing element. We have to have the number of sites that we've been given. We can't just choose to have less. And then third, the city can overrule the commission. Just want to note we are not the only ones in this situation. There are other cities that are going through this, in particular because of the housing element and the very challenging RENA allocation that was given to all cities. We're all just struggling to meet the mandates of the state. The Airport Land Use Commission is tasked with assisting us, but the cities have been very clearly directed by the state that they do have to provide these housing sites. And I can note as well that we did receive our review letter from HCD following the adoption that took place in February. We then submit that to HCD for their review, and they have determined that they will not be certifying us at this time. It's about an 8-page letter that we'll be working our way through and trying to figure out our path forward here. But I can tell you that a lot of the letter is about showing analysis that essentially proves the sites we've selected will turn into housing, which is it's an interesting circumstance. We were handed the number and told what we need to do, and now we've got to figure out how to prove it back. So We're working on it. All right, our overrule process. So what's before you tonight is the first step in the overrule process, which is adopting the resolution of the intent to override. So looking at the evidence before you that's in the staff report and has been presented, we had those 3 findings from the ALEC, from the commission, and then discussion on, whether or not those findings are accurate, or if the council believes that they're inaccurate and would like to overrule the commission. So there's a few steps here. So tonight you would adopt the intent to overrule. Tonight is not an actual overrule, it's the intent to overrule. Should you adopt that, then that resolution would be sent to the Airport Land Use Commission, as well as the Department of Transportation, a Division of Aeronautics. There's a 45-day waiting period where we wait to receive comments back from them should they choose to provide them. And then after the 45-day period, we would hold a public hearing. Again, you would be presented with evidence to consider and so forth. And at that point, you would be making a decision as to whether or not you wanted to do the overrule. And just based on the timeline, we'd be looking at probably the June 13th meeting for that to happen. And that is the end of my presentation. I am available for questions.
I have a question. Do we only communicate with the commission via letter? Are there in-person meetings where you can look them in the eye and say, what do you expect us to do here?
They do hold in-person meetings, yes, and I've attended a couple of them now.
And do these people move on to be on the Coastal Commission?
They take lessons from each other.
Yeah.
We're in a tough geographic spot, yeah.
With regard to to their findings and the contour zones of 65 decibels, are these the same standards that would be applied to John Wayne Airport?
They are, yeah, I believe
Based
so.
on, is there anything, any consideration for the fact that if you compare the number of flights daily, does that not mitigate the level of risk based on the number of flights that don't appear to be taking off all day, every day from our little military base?
Yeah, I mean, theoretically, fewer flights is a lower risk of accidents. That's not how the land use plan is written. The land use plan kind of gives
to
the
take
guidance
any
that it
airport,
gives. Yeah.
anywhere.
Yeah.
Well, personally, we have nothing to lose by voting to send the notice to overrule at this point.
Right.
I think that at some point, we sort of have to at least, take a stand, and I think our staff is well-versed in what we need to do to, go back and try and show them that they've gone a little too far in this case. So that's my viewpoint. Start on the end.
I was going to ask how much traffic is the airport get.
I will continue to try to get that information.
Is there any height issues with the noise? Seems like it shouldn't be an issue, but the height, was there a height issue with?
There is not a height issue, no.
And is there an issue where I guess when the airplane approaches, there's it has to go over some housing? Is the issue, or one of the issues that's where it will go over, or does it narrow it, or they'll try to avoid going over those houses?
I don't know that I can answer that. I don't imagine that aircraft would be modifying their flight path for this site in particular, for the number of homes, because there is so much residential around there. But yeah, I don't have information on the traffic patterns.
Let's see. Have we gotten any feedback from the airport on the flight pass or anything?
No, we have not.
Okay, thanks.
But I think we should note that the main effect of the action that's proposed here, of giving the notice of intent, is to send it to the Airport Land Use Commission and say, okay, tell us what your problems are in greater detail at a public hearing.
Okay.
That's the purpose of taking this action tonight. We give them 45 days to come back in greater detail at a public hearing with what their issues are, or just to substantiate their issues.
So we can kind of put the onus back on them a bit.
Yeah, it is a back and forth.
Okay.
It's, unfortunately, like a lot of things that are spelled out in a statute, it's you do this, they do that, but that's the intent
It's
of
not
the
like
step.
HCD.
I have no comments.
Why?
I want to tell.
Shelley?
Oh,
Give
I
us
have
your
comments.
reasoning.
I have comments, yeah. I'm actually a member of the Airport Land Use Commission. I have been for 5 years. I did not attend this meeting. I recused myself to avoid any kind of, excuse me, conflict of interest with it. I can't represent the Airport Land Use Commission, but I understand by being on it, certain concepts, and the noise and the height are important issues that look at, but as Alexa said at the beginning, that's not the only thing they look at. They look at safety issues, and also they try to protect people from airports, but also protect airports from people. So it's encroachment and safety for the residents as well as, whatever. So I believe they gave some kind of findings or whatever, but I wasn't at the meeting. I didn't hear the meeting and whatever. So it's interesting that the sound contours have changed, so it looks like they're over they are over my neighborhood, but they've sort of moved, so what looks like it shouldn't have happened, has moved over time. But both, if you look at the maps, it's actually not when it was a Naval Air Station, but up until the time it was Armed Forces Reserve Center. There's an old map that shows the old safety zones, and both of these sites were inside the APZ-1, which is it's a military safety zone. And so I have concerns about, they don't have as many fixed-wing airplanes flying, but we don't know exactly what a future use would be. I mean, this base is military, it's CalGuard and it's Army, so it's used for emergencies, disasters, deployments, homeland security, various things. So I personally, am leery to do anything that would reduce the capacity of the base. That being said, I've also been told that in 2018, there were new regulations put forward, so the A-loop, what she showed the diagrams for, that's based on noise studies from 1987. And even though the A-loop was updated in 2017, the base didn't perform what's called an AQ study, where they evaluate the noise concerns and supposedly work with the surrounding communities to look at compatible land uses and things. They also applied for a JLUS, which we did with the other, the Naval Weapons Station, to talk about compatible uses, but apparently that wasn't funded, so that didn't move forward. But the 2018 change, right now, I believe the reason that those safety zones were pulled back was it was relying on a Air Force plan to form that, and now that's not allowed anymore because it's owned by the Army. It would have to be an Army study, and what I was told was that in order for us to propose a project here, we would have to apply for a waiver for them because the safety zones were actually are out there, even though they're not there technically. So there's a lot of involved here that, may come out, during all this investigation or whatever, but I don't think, I'm just trying to say it's not quite as simple and direct as you make out. The Airport Land Use Commission it has a couple council people on it, but generally the people that are on there are very invested in aviation, and they did a unanimous decision of inconsistency. So the JFTB's remaining military airfield in LA and Orange County, and the path of their fixed-wing aircraft is across the golf course.
And over my house.
Yeah, no, I know, but there is a greater risk of accident on takeoffs and landings, and so that's what's occurring there, and that's what I think is the concern. As I said, I can't speak for them.
Do they take history into account?
I think they do, but like I said, I was told the 2018 process has changed, and so I'm not really familiar with that. It's just more rigorous, and all I know is that's a change. So it's not just like, well, whatever worked here would work here. It's not necessarily the case.
Gotcha.
Generally, the California Airport Land Use Handbook doesn't like to see dense residential under the flight path either. There was even a letter from, I think, 2018 where they were concerned about the Sunrise facility being able to evacuate easily evacuate in case of an incident. So there's things that are considered. If you override, the liability is off the airport, but it is not off us. So if something happens, we could be liable, or we could very well be sued in the event of something, for approving something that was denied or found inconsistent. Seal Beach is one of 2 cities in Orange County that is classified as an inconsistent agency. And my understanding of this is just that we haven't proven or shown our general plan to be consistent with the A-loop for the JFTB. I think it may have been inconsistent since the 80s. And I decided that I was going to try to make us consistent. So when Crystal was our interim director, I was trying to get Crystal to talk to the ALUC, and they presented some things that we could do to our general plan to bring us into consistency. And Crystal explained this was before our Measure BB, and we had no money, and she said it'll be a couple years and some money before we can, bring our general plan up to, so those weren't done. My understanding from the attorney of the Airport Land Use Commission is that because we're an inconsistent agency, they can still require us to bring our plans to them. So I don't know that is an escape, overriding is an escape for that. The A-loop and our general plan both say that further encroachment onto the flight path should be avoided, and that doesn't help here. I generally, overall, I just don't understand why we haven't spoken to the base, because they are the ones who know where their airplanes fly, what the safety issues are, and overriding the ALUC when we haven't spoken to the base about what's going on here. I just think we need to do communication. I mean, if we want to try to do a project and go through an EIR and we don't even know if it can be allowed by the FAA and not just for height, but that's apparently who the new rules go through. So I just think we should we sent, I guess, our housing element there at the request of my planning commissioner, and I think that we should send the details on a proposed project to them so that they could begin to vet it, because that's also a long time, rather than go through an EIR and then put it before them and then have them vet it to see if that would be acceptable to the, the state or whatever. So anyway, those are some of it may not apply directly to what was decided on that day, but I don't think it's quite as simple as
Mike?
all that.
No, I just want to reiterate that there are some homes currently within the 60 to 65 decibel levels, or outside the clear zone. And I would make a motion to approve it.
Any other?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
I think your idea is noble, that the city get together with JFTB and try and work it. That's not how it should be. The JFTB needs to coordinate with the Airport Land Use Commission and get their data straight so that the Airport Land Use Commission can make an accurate determination of whether someone is actually not in compliance with the plan. So it's not on Seal Beach to go to JFTB. It's on JFTB to go to ALUC.
They presented a list of things that Seal Beach had to do, and Seal Beach just didn't do them.
I don't think that's right, but my opinion.
Based on what you've heard this evening, do you have either any comments or?
What do we have to do?
Yeah, I mean, do you feel that including the information that Councilmember Starsik has provided us with, does that change, influence, add, subtract from how you think proceeding will ultimately affect us? In other words, if we take this first step, we can always say, we give up, or, where do we go?
Yeah, thank you. I have read the Airport Land Use Environs Plan very closely. The information in it is the information in it, and I'm sure that there's other information out there that if the Airport Land Use Commission would provide to us. I think this is the right method to do that. To wait for their further input, because this is, as City Attorney said, it essentially puts them on notice and allows them to provide that information.
I think the issue, I guess just a couple of responses. One is, just to build on what Alexis said, if you don't take this action, which is to provide notice, it's not an action to overrule, well, then there's no real forum for that, any kind of conversation to take place from there on out, right? Their action stands, and the legal consequence of that is that the city starts submitting planning decisions to the Airport Land Use Commission, which I don't think anybody would consider to be a good outcome, regardless of your view of this particular site. So, if you don't take this step, then the choice is go back and amend the housing element, or submit everything to the Airport Land Use Commission. And both of those choices are still with you 45 days from now, as long as you take this step, right? All your options are available to you 45 days from now after a public hearing, as long as you take this step. If you don't, then you're just saying we're going to submit to what the Airport Land Use Commission said, based on what I think all of us would agree is kind of conflicting, complicated data or missing data.
Yeah.
So there's no way to really kind of work that out without taking this step. The second thing I would say is that, I think we're on record with our office and the city disagreeing with the Airport Land Use Commission's consideration of the city as inconsistent and all of those issues. I mean, that goes back 20-some years, that debate. And we'll continue, I think, to have that debate. But the last issue is the city's not proposing a project, right? The city's not proposing to build something. A private landowner is proposing to build something. And there's all this overlapping legal authority there that might apply to what that private landowner wants to build. It's the private landowner's problem to figure that stuff out, right? If the city was investing money and saying, we're going to build a housing complex on this site, and we're the owner, well, then it's on the city to figure all that stuff out. That's not what's happening here. The city's making a policy determination as required by state law. It's on the property owner to figure it out if they want to move forward with a project. There's a whole bunch of, as you all know, complications on that site, and that's on the applicant to figure it out. But again, if you don't take this action, we kind of never get to that next step because we'll just be submitting land use authority to the Airport Land Use Commission. So that's
Clear to me. Okay, you made a motion, Mike?
Make a motion to approve item J.
I second it.
Okay, we have motion and a second. Could please vote?
Motion carries 4-1.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. The next item is adjournment. So therefore, I will adjourn the city council to Monday, April 25th, 2022 at 5:30 PM to meet in closed session if deemed necessary. Thanks for everyone's participation and goodwill and everything else.